Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganata Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganata Praptasakalana Gurnanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Praptasakalana Gurnanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Gita Romancha Kampasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatopi Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidashi Satana Truptan Kridvaiva Trupti Vajata Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shiradikama Vabayara Para Madhuralila Gunarupanamna Shiradikama Pratikshana Swa Dhanalarupasa Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Ne kunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jajali Virjokti Apekshaneya Nikunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jajali Virjokti Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Sakchadhari Dvena Samasta Shastri Ruktastatava Vyataiva Sadhavi Sakchadhari Dvena Shastri Kintu Pravarja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Dayam Stuvam Tasa Yasatri Sandhyam Bande Guroshi Charanara Vrindam Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Bande Gurashi Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shonavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Deve Gauravani Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hariya Nama, Krishna Jadavaya Nama, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama, Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudam, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Shri Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe, जय जगन्नाथ जय बालादेवा जय सुभद्रामा जय सुदर्शन चक्र निताय गौर हरिबो 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 निताय गौर हरिबो Nande Haribo Jai Vishwapara Paramahansa Prabhajakaacharya Sutara Srashi Srimad His Divine Grace of Bhojanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakachara Vaishnava Siromani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhara Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhautar Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय अनंत कुछ वैष्णव वृंद की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासरि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौर चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावृणावतार की जय गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जय की जय जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय Brihat Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopna Radha Kund Syamakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathurdham Ki Jai Delosh Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav Ki Jai Shri Shri Maya Purnavadip Eka Chakradham Ki Jai Paramakaruna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai भक्ति सर्वविघ्न विनाशना करने श्रृंगरे भगवान की जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय जय गंगा माय जमुना माय की जय तुलसी महारानी वृंदे देवी भक्ति देवी की जय श्री मति राधा रानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गौर हरि परमानंदे all glories to somebody bodies all glories to somebody bodies all glories to somebody bodies all glories to Shri Guru Shri Guru Jai
नमस्ते नरसिंहाया नमस्ते नरसिंहाया प्रहलाद लाददायिने हिरण्यकशिपूर्वक्षः शीलटंका नखालाए इतो न सिंहा परतो न सिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो न सिंहो
Jata Jata
बाहेन सिंहो हृदये न सिंहो नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव करकमलवरे नाथा अद्भुत शृंगा ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवद्वीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जगदीश हरे ममकर कमल वरे नाथा अद्भुत ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनु भृंगा केशवगीता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जयो
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namah Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namah Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namah Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi Ki Jai. Move a little bit the camera there. Move a little bit side. Yeah.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Nama
Tu तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
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 जे तो मार शरण लोय तारा वंश पूर्ण होय।
मार शरणाला सारवंच पुरा।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुम्ही कृपा करे करा करे वृंदावनवासी।
तुम्ही कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुम्ही कृपा करे करा करे वृंदावनवासी।
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वास। नयने हेरिबो सदा युगल रूप राशि। हे निवेदन धरो सखीर अनुगत करो। सेवाधिकारा दिए करो निज दासी। सेवाधिकारा दिए करो निज दासी। दीना कृष्ण दासे को हे ये ना मोरा हो। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये नबासी। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये नभाषी। यानी कानी चापा पानी ब्रह्मात्यादिकानि चा तानि तानि प्रनश्यन्ते प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रनश्यन्ते प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रनश्यन्ते प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी. जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदे देवी, जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी. नित्य गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, नित्य गौरा हरि बोल. वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय.
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Sarvasatya Krishna Bhakti Parinami Sattvatai. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Sarvasatya Krishna Bhakti Parinami Sattvatai. Oh, Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shishi Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of countless damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krasthakam ki jai. Chito Darpana Majanam Bhavamada Bhagni Nivapanam Shri Akari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jivanam Ananda Mudivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitani Amita Shmarane Nakala Itadrushi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaiva Midrishamya Janina Nuraga Trinarapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagarisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmaneshwari Bhavata Bhakti Rahituki Tvai Oi Nandatanuja Kinkaram Paritamam Vishame Baba Buddho Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galora Shrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadarudaya Gira Purakarinchitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimeshena Chakrisa Prabhusaitam Shunyaitam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virainame Asli Shava Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshnar Marmahatam Karotuva Jatata Tava Vidadatulam Poto Matprananatastu Sa Evana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaur Tvishenu. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and establishes the fire of conditional life for repeated birth. This Sankirtan moment is a prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of benediction mode. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus we have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names you have invested your transcendental energies. There's not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower and stronger straight, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotion and service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I am falling this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, only my eyes will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. Or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and surely remain so, even if he sunders me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri
Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki
Jai.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati.
There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1.
To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord.
2.
To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Rama, to be equal to or independent names of Lord Vishnu.
3.
To disobey the orders of the spiritual master.
4.
To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuant to the Vedic version.
5.
To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination.
6.
To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord.
7.
To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord.
8.
To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often in Vedas as fruitive activities through karma kanda.
9.
To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
And 10.
To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be the intent while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhischa Kripasindubhyebhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Satarine. Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatahapajikamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagudara Gunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shivasubhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shimurtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Abhasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gorakishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambude Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gorashakti Sarupaya Mupanugavarayate Gauravir Bhavabhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhaumashri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurutsuse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Saktikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surator Pangur Mama Manda Mater Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalprajumadaha Shimad Ratnagarha Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestali Bihi Sevyamanam Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatakstriyeshtuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Panchatattva Mahamantra Ki Jai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by his plenary expansion, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, his incarnation, Sri Advaita Prabhu, his internal potency, Sri Gadadhara Prabhu, and his marginal potency, Srivas Prabhu. He is in the midst of them as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by these other tattvas. Therefore, our obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are complete when we say, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda. As preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement, we first offer our obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by chanting this Panchatattva mantra. Then we say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There are 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but these are not considered in the chanting of the Panchatattva mantra, namely, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is known as the Mahavadanya, the most magnanimous incarnation, for he does not consider the offenses of the fallen souls. Thus, to derive the full benefit of the chanting of the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we must first take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, learn the Panchatattva mantra, and then chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That will be very effective. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The transcendental vibration established by the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the sublime method of reviving our Krishna consciousness. As living spiritual souls, we are all originally Krishna conscious entities. But due to our association with matter from time immemorial, our consciousness is now polluted by the material atmosphere. The material atmosphere in which we are now living is called Maya, or illusion. Maya means that which is not. And what is this illusion? The illusion is that we are all trying to be lords of material nature, while actually we are under the grip of her stringent laws. When a servant artificially tries to imitate the all-powerful master, this is called illusion. In this polluted concept of life, we are all trying to exploit the resources of material nature, but actually we are becoming more and more entangled in her complexities. Therefore, although we are engaged in a hard struggle to conquer nature, we are ever more dependent on her. This illusory struggle against this illusory struggle against material nature can be stopped at once by revival of our Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. This consciousness is the original energy of the living entity. When we hear the transcendental vibration, this consciousness is revived. And this process is recommended for this age by authorities. By practical experience also, one can perceive that by chanting this Mahamantra, or the great chanting for deliverance, one can at once feel a transcendental ecstasy coming through from the spiritual stratum. And when one is factually on the plane of spiritual understanding, surpassing the stages of planning, mind, and intelligence, one is situated on the transcendental plane. This chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is directly enacted from the spiritual platform, and thus this sound vibration surpasses the lower strata of consciousness, namely sensual, mental, and intellectual. There is no need, therefore, to understand the language of the mantra, nor is there any need for mental speculation or any intellectual adjustment for chanting this Mahamantra. It springs automatically from the spiritual platform, and as such, anyone can take part in the chanting without any previous qualification and dance in ecstasy. We have seen this practically. Even a child can take part in the chanting, or even a dog can take part in it. Of course, for one who is too entangled in material life, it takes a little more time to come to the standard point. But even such a materially engrossed man is raised to the spiritual platform very quickly. When the mantra is chanted by a pure devotee of the Lord in love, it has the greatest efficacy on the hearers, and as such, this chanting should be heard from the lips of a pure devotee of the Lord, so that immediate effects can be achieved. As far as possible, chanting from the lips of non-devotees should be avoided. Milk touched by the lips of a serpent milk touched by the lips of a serpent has poisonous effects. The word Hara is the form of addressing the energy of the Lord, and the words Krishna and Rama are forms of addressing the Lord himself. Both Krishna and Rama mean the supreme pleasure, and Hara is the supreme pleasure energy of the Lord, changed to Hare in the vocative. The supreme pleasure energy of the Lord helps us to reach the Lord. The material energy called Maya is also one of the multi-energies of the Lord, and we, the living entities, are also the energy, marginal energy of the Lord. The living entities are described as superior to material nature, or material energy. When the superior energy is in contact with the inferior energy, an incompatible situation arises. But when the superior marginal energy is in contact with the superior energy, called Hara or Srimati Radharani, the living entity is established in his happy, normal condition. These three words, namely Hare Krishna and Rama, are the transcendental seeds of the Mahamantra. The chanting is a spiritual call for the Lord and his internal energy, Hara or Radharani, to give protection to the conditioned soul. This chanting is enacted like the genuine cry of a child for its mother. Mother Hara helps the devotee achieve the grace of the Supreme Father, Hari or Krishna, and the Lord reveals himself to the devotee who chants this mantra sincerely. No other means of spiritual realization, therefore, is as effective in this age as chanting the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, verse number 22. Manisitanu bhavo, Manisitanu bhavo yam Mama loka valokanam Yadupas shrutya rahasi Chakarta paramam tapa. Manisita, ingenuity. Anubhava, perception. Ayam, this. Mama, my. Loka, abode. Avalokanam, seeing by actual experience. Yat, because. Upashrutya, hearing. Rahasi, in great penance. Chakarta, having performed. Paramam, highest. Tapaha, penance. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abodes, my meaning Krishna's abodes, and this has been possible because of your submissive attitude. He's speaking to Lord Brahma. In the performance of severe penance, according to my order, meaning Krishna's order. Purport or commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The highest perfectional stage of life is to know the Lord by actual perception. By the grace of the Lord, this can be attained by everyone who is willing to discharge the act of devotional service to the Lord as enjoined in the revealed scriptures that are standard and accepted by the bona fide acharyas or spiritual masters. For example, the Bhagavad Gita is the approved Vedic literature accepted by all great acharyas such as Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Chaitanya, Vishwanatha, Baladeva, Siddhanta, Saraswati, and many others. In that Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, asked that one always be mindful of Him, always be His devotee, always worship Him only, and always bow down before the Lord. And by doing so, one is sure to go back home, back to Godhead, without any doubt. In other places also, the same order is there, that one should give up all other engagements and fully engage unto the Lord without hesitation. And the Lord will give such a devotee all protection. These are the secrets of attaining the highest perfectional stage. Lord Brahma exactly followed these principles without any superiority complex, and thus he attained the highest perfectional stage of experiencing the abode of the Lord and the Lord himself with all his paraphernalia, impersonal realization of the effulgence of the Lord's body is not the highest perfectional stage, nor is the stage of Paramatma realization. The word manisita is significant Everyone is falsely or factually proud of his or her so-called learning. But the Lord says that the highest perfectional stage of learning is to know him and his abode devoid of all illusion. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abodes, and this has been possible because of your submissive attitude in the performance of severe penance according to my order. So just as a little reminder, the word ingenuity is defined in the dictionary as a quality of being clever, original, or inventive. And here Prabhupada is talking about the highest ingenuity. And what is the highest ingenuity as opposed to the normal meaning of the word? It's personal perception of Vaikuntha and understanding the science of Krishna. That's the highest ingenuity. The lower definition of ingenuity that you'll find in the Merriam-Webster dictionary or other dictionaries is, you be very clever or inventive or original. But the highest ingenuity, so we have to pay attention to the adjectives as well as the nouns. The adjective is the highest ingenuity, and that's defined by Srila Prabhupada in his purport. So therefore, there are two sources of, let's say, reference. One is the normal dictionary, and the other is the special emphasis that Prabhupada gives and ups the meaning, or gives a transcendental meaning to the word. So we should not simply depend on the dictionary definition. And that's why if you only read the verses and don't read the purports, you will not really understand what's going on. You have to read the commentary or purport also to understand what Prabhupada is saying. I'll give you an example of that. If we go to the 9th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, and verse number 20, verse number 32. Mamhi parta vipasritya tepisu yepisu papayonaha striya vaichas tatasudras tepiyanti paramgatim. So one day, many years ago, when we had a little house here instead of this big temple, there was one young lady who came, and she was a Mormon. And there are a lot of Mormons in Washington State because it's right near Utah, where they're the center of their Mormonism. If you don't know what Mormonism is, it's an offshoot, or what you would call a heretic, an offshoot of Christianity, but with their own, let's say, guru, their own Bible, by the way. Although they don't renounce the traditional Bible, but they have their own Bible and their own history also. So anyway, I won't go into Mormonism, but and she was a very nice lady, and she had been coming for some time to the temple to find out about Krishna consciousness. So we were on this verse, 9th chapter, 32nd verse, and the translation says, "O son of Pritha," so that means, "O Arjuna, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, or merchants, and Sudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination." As soon as it said lower birth women, she went, "Ah!" And we were all shocked, and I said, "Are you all right?" She said, "No, I'm not all right. Your guru just insulted women. He's a male chauvinist." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Hold your horses. Let's read the purport and see what he means here." She said, "I don't know if I can do that." I said, "Look, just take it easy. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Meditate for 30 seconds and calm down, and let's hear the purport so you can understand what he said. So she waited, and then I read. It is clearly declared here by the Supreme Lord that in devotional service there is no distinction between the lower and higher classes of people. Whoa, wait a minute. Already he made a huge statement there. So there's no distinction between lower or higher classes of people. People that includes men and women. Because when it says Vaishyas or merchants and Sudras, those are all men. In the material conception of life, there are such divisions. But for a person engaged in transcendental devotional service to the Lord, there are not. Everyone is eligible for the supreme destination. So now it's a breath of fresh air here. There's no pejorative meaning to this verse, unless you avoid the purport and just read the verse and then misinterpret it due to pre-existing prejudices that you have had by modern education, you see. So now Prabhupada continues. Everyone is eligible for the supreme destination. In the Srimad Bhagavatam's 2nd canto, 4th chapter, 18th verse, it is stated that even the lowest, who are called chandalas, dog-eaters, can be purified by association of a pure devotee. Therefore, devotional service and the guidance of a pure devotee are so strong that there is no discrimination between the lower and higher classes of men. Anyone can take to it. The most simple man taking shelter of the pure devotee can be purified by proper guidance. According to the different modes of material nature, men are classified in the mode of goodness, brahmanas, the mode of passion, kshatriyas, or administrators, the mixed modes of passion and ignorance, vaishyas or merchants, and the mode of ignorance, sudras or workers. Those lower than them are called chandalas, dog-eaters, and they are born in sinful families. Generally, the association of those born in sinful families is not accepted by the higher classes, but the process of devotional service is so strong that the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord can enable people of all the lower classes to attain the highest perfection of life. This is possible only when one takes shelter of Krishna. As indicated here by the word vipasritya, one has to take shelter completely of Krishna, then one can become much greater than great jnanis and yogis. So, if you read the purport, you see it's a complete statement of hope for everyone, men, women, and even dog-eaters, and even most sinful people. Now let's look at some more. If you read the introduction, that same verse is there in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita on page 31 in my book. It might be a different page for you. And it says, Mam hi parta vipasritya yepisyu papayonaha striya vaisas tatasudras tepiyanti parangutim. And it says, thus the Lord says that even a merchant, a fallen woman, or a laborer, or even human beings in the lowest status of life can attain the supreme. One does not need highly developed intelligence. So, now we understand what the full meaning here is. When he says women, he doesn't mean all women in the translation in 932. And he's clarified that also here in the introduction on page 31. He's referring to fallen women like Marilyn Monroe or Elizabeth Taylor or Miley, what's her name? Miley Cyrus or something like that. Yeah, and then also what's her name? She's really fallen. I always forget the demons' names, but Madonna. You know, all these ladies are considered fallen ladies. They're addicted to the same bad habits as fallen men: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. So, and then it says, even human beings in the lowest status of life can attain the supreme. one does not need highly developed intelligence. The point is that anyone who accepts the principle of bhakti yoga or devotional service under the instruction of bona fide Siksha and Diksha gurus, the point is bhakti yoga, and accepts the Supreme Lord as the summum bonum, or the greatest supreme absolute truth of life, as the highest target, the ultimate goal, can approach the Lord in the spiritual sky. If one adopts the principles enunciated in Bhagavad Gita, he or she can make his or her life perfect, and make it perfect all the problems of life. This is the sum and substance of the entire Bhagavad Gita. There you go. So that's an example of what happens if you only read the verse and don't read the purport. And there are people like, they have hundreds of hours of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, only reading the verses, but not the purports. So that is not hearing Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. If you want to hear it, you have to hear it as we're doing. You go page by page, chapter by chapter, very slowly. It can take a long time, but that is the way that's recommended in the Bhagavatam itself. So, therefore, it says here, the highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abodes, and this has been possible because of your submissive attitude. So, Trinadapi Sunichena Tararapi Saistana Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. We repeat this every morning in the prayers that we recite in Sanskrit. And this is the third verse of the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Siksastakam. Siksastakam means it is a teaching based on Shastra, right? Shastric wisdom. And it says that Trinadapi Sunichana, one should be more tolerant than the blade of grass. Everybody steps on the grass never complains. And also one should be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. The tree never complains. People come and they bore holes into the tree, and there's scorching heat of the sun, and there's the wind, and there's cold. The tree is rooted, doesn't move, and is silent. Although it's a living being like you and me, but it's silent, right? So, and the grass is very humble. People crush it, and again, it doesn't say anything. Step on it. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, and ready to offer all respect to others, even those that don't respect you. In such a state of mind, one can become sadahari. Sadahari means that nothing will disturb your chanting of the holy names of the Lord and your devotional service. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Why? Because you are, it's just like this. Let's say you're in your house and the kids are running around and your husband is this or your wife is doing that, and you're really getting nervous and upset all the time, right? And then you go on vacation, so you get on an airplane, you go up 35,000 feet up in the air, and you're flying out of Seattle, and you're trying to look and see if you can see your house. You can't even see it. And now you're free of all those problems for the time being, right? And you're going on a vacation, and you're going to have a great time, blah, blah, blah. Of course, you might go and get COVID and get sick, but who knows? Anyway, you see, when you rise above that time-space module called the house, which is very limited, in space, and in which there's a lot of activity going on, a lot of responsibilities. You have to pay the rent, or the mortgage, and this thing and that thing. Take the kids to soccer, and go to the Safeway, and it's a lot of things going on. But now you're 35,000 feet way up in the air. You can't even see the house, and you're going on vacation, so you have a breath of fresh air, right? Well, in the same way, when we accept the process that Brahma went through to attain his perfection, and it's based on his submissiveness or his submissive attitude in the performance of severe penance according to Krishna's order. That's the secret of success in life, right there. Now, Brahma is the most successful person in the whole universe. I mean, I've explained this many times, so I won't go over it again, but he's the most successful person. And why? Because, and this is Krishna speaking to him. He says, because it's the highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abodes. So Krishna showed Brahma Vaikuntha, and he also revealed himself to Brahma. So those are the highest achievements of a human being, to be able to see God face to face and see the vision of the spiritual world. And this is because of Brahma's submissive attitude in the performance of severe penance according to my order. Now, what does that mean, severe penance? Life is full of severe penances. Penance, of course, is acceptance of pain and discomfort or austerity for a higher purpose. And the higher purpose is to serve Krishna. So when one becomes, so in other words, here's the diametric or a very major difference between materialism and spiritualism. The materialist gets puffed up with false ego and self-assurance and uses speculation and false logic and phony science to convince himself that he can become or she can become immortal, and that all their opinions are the truth, and they speak condescendingly to other people, and they just get completely puffed up and arrogant and sure of themselves. Just like I was speaking to one lady once at our food truck, and I asked her, what do you do in life? She said, well, I have my master's degree, and I'm working in such and such a company. I said, oh, I said, you have a good education. She said, yeah, I might get my PhD also. I said, so what's your concept of purpose of life? She said, well, I'm an atheist. I said, okay, but what's your concept of life? Well, my concept of life is that, I should enjoy life to the fullest, and that my only prayer is that when I die, there's nothing. I said, who do you pray to? I said, I pray to the universe. I pray to everything. I said, okay. How do you know there's going to be nothing? She said, that's my prayer. That's my hope. That's my certitude, because there's nothing after death. I said, well, you're wrong there. Said, oh, no. Are you some religious guy? I said, no, I'm not a religious guy. I'm just speaking based on my empirical study of this issue. She said, empirical? I said, yes. Empirical means using your senses and your mind and intelligence and observing matter and understanding things. He says, how can you empirically understand that there's life after death? I said, well, wait a minute. Let's get one thing straight. You haven't used any empirical evidence to prove that there's no life after death. Am I right? She said, that's my hope. I said, good. I'm glad you said that. I said, my empirical evidence is the following. Every step in my life, I have experienced birth and death and rebirth again. She said, how is that? She said, I don't understand what you're saying. I said, well, look, every day your body and my body are changing. And if you study it in depth, you'll see that what's the major changes taking place? Every day you're producing new cells, and many cells are dying. And the number goes into the millions on a daily basis. She said, well, you might be true. I'm not sure if it's millions, but you might be true there. That might be a fact. Yes, our cells are being born and they're dying. And then more cells are coming in. So basically, every day we die and we rejuvenate. And death is just it's not the final thing. It's just a example of dying, and then after that we rejuvenate. He said, well, I don't follow that. To me, death is the final thing. I said, but every day is the final thing is happening, and then again you're rejuvenated. I said, when you go to sleep, it's like death. You're not conscious. It's in deep sleep. You're not conscious, but yet your body is functioning. You're not even control. You're not even in control of the body. You don't understand how it's functioning. Your body's making blood. You don't know how that happens. No one's ever been able to make a true facsimile of blood by science. And I said, so many mysterious things are happening in your body, and you're not in control. I'm not in control. That means someone else is in control, and you are in effect dying when you're sleeping. You're basically dead in the sense that you're not conscious of your existence, and then when you wake up, you become conscious of your existence. And at the same time, so many of the cells in your body are dying in that 24-hour period, and so many more cells are appearing. So this is birth and death going on a daily basis. She said, well, that may be your theory. I said, no, it's not a theory. It's based on empirical observation. She said, but that still doesn't prove that we can have another existence after death. Well, I said, look, when you read, let's say you're in 3rd grade, and you read a book of science, and it says the sun is 93 million miles from the Earth. And then you take a test, and they ask you, how far is the sun from the Earth? 93 miles, 930 miles, 93,000 miles, or 93 million miles. And if you answer 93 million miles, you get an A on your test. Now, will you ever measure how far the sun is from the Earth? She said, probably not. Okay, so then, but you got an A in science class because you answered yes, 93 million miles. She said, yeah, that's true. I said, so you see, something that you will never verify, but yet you get a degree in science based on making the right answer of what you've been fed, what you've been presented with, right? And you don't know if it's true or not. How do you know if it's not 92,999,000 miles or 94 million miles? You don't know. You don't know. And by the way, it is a fact that the sun is going in an orbit, and sometimes it can be that 93 million miles. It's just an estimate. It's not exact, right? But of course, you're not taught that in 3rd grade. So I told her, and then you'll go through, and when you're 50 years old, someone will say to you, how far is the sun from the Earth? You'll say 93 million miles. You're never going to, verify it. So I said, now, most of the knowledge that you have and I have has been fed to us. And we just accept it as true because we accept someone as an authority. Some scientist, like Einstein, the smartest man in the world, said this. Okay, well, we'll believe it because he's supposed to be the smartest man in the world. But that doesn't mean it's true. And I said, but your authority are these mundane speculating scientists. My authority is Vedic Shastras and my spiritual master and the disciplic succession. So we both have the same thing. Whatever you're being fed by the Einsteins and the Oppenheimers and all these guys, you accept as the truth, and whatever I'm being fed by my guru and this disciplic succession, I accept as the truth. But the difference is this: I have empirical experience of what I'm being fed is actually true, and you don't. She said, well, can you remember dying and being born again? I said, yes, it's happening to me every day. When I go to sleep and I wake up, I'm still the same person, but my body has changed, right? And your body has changed. You had the body of a little fish, a microscopic fish, and it connected with an ovum, and then it started to develop with 9 holes and a little pea, and then eventually the appendages came out, and the head and the blood and all the different parts of the body were built up in the womb of your mother. I said, that's a miracle. Where did all that information come from? Where did all that scientific knowledge came from? It was in that microscopic fish, right? And what is that microscopic fish? That was your first body. And then you have dramatically changed your body since that time where the fish swam into your mother's womb. I said, so you've changed your body hundreds, thousands of times. And that other body you had, that fish, that doesn't exist anymore. And that little pea with 9 holes, that doesn't exist anymore, right? So you died many times, and you evolved through all those different bodies. And now at the moment of death, it's just another change of body, that's all. Your soul is not subject to birth and death. She said, well, wait a minute, I don't believe in the soul. I said, this is not a question of I believe or I don't believe. This is a question of facts. The fact is that you are not your body, and it's always changing. But you are the witness of the changes of the body. That means you're different. You're the seer, and the body is the seen. So there's a difference between you, the seer, and what is seen. And that body does not have consciousness. It's the soul that has consciousness. She said, well, this is going too far. I said, I can't accept all this. I said, you don't want to accept it, but this is the fact, and I'm explaining facts, not theories. Right. So anyway, she was not convinced. But she has a hope that there's nothing after death. She ends up with that. That's her hope. And therefore she will not listen to anything that's Shastric. She only believes all the phonies, the Einsteins and the Oppenheimers and all these phony guys that are speculating. Okay, so if we want to be successful in life, we should follow Brahma's example. The highest perfectional stage of life is to know the Lord by actual perception, by the grace of the Lord. Okay, so this is what we should be focusing on in our life. If we get the mercy of Krishna, Krishna promises, as we've read before, he will reveal knowledge to us. As he says in Bhagavad Gita, Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. So we went over that verse yesterday. That's the 10th chapter, 10th verse. And then the 10th chapter, 11th verse. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So the spiritual knowledge is revealed to us. And academic knowledge is something that we learn by hearing and taking tests and passing tests and so forth. But there's a major difference between the two. The major difference is the difference between mundane knowledge and transcendental knowledge. Mundane knowledge will keep us in the material world, birth after birth, birth and death, birth and death. Transcendental knowledge will liberate us from that cycle of birth and death. How do we know that? There are many examples of people who are liberated. In the West, you have Jesus Christ. But in the East, you have hundreds, thousands of examples of people who were liberated from the whole cycle of birth and death by following the Vedic Dharma. Or more precisely, the example of Lord Brahma. Okay, so therefore, there's a real interest here in understanding how Brahma attained perfection. And it's by not inflating the false ego based on speculative knowledge, but becoming humble and submissive to hearing the message of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. So that is what we were studying also in our alternate study every day, our very slow process of this complementary explanation. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 8th Madhya Lila, second part of it, and in the 8th chapter, we began in this discussion of Lord Chaitanya with Ramananda Rai. And Lord Chaitanya's question to him is, recite a verse from the revealed scriptures concerning the ultimate goal of life. That's the question I asked that lady. And she said, ultimate goal of life, just enjoy life as much as I can, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, like animals, not making any inquiry into the existence of the soul as different from the material body. And my only hope in life is that after death, there's nothing. So that is a very bleak and sorry story right there of a type of life. So Lord Chaitanya wants to know, what is the real goal of life? So therefore, Ramananda Rai begins by saying that if one executes the prescribed duties of his social position, he awakens his original Krishna consciousness. So that's basically a verse from Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvanyam Mayashrishtam Gunakarma Vibhagasaha. Krishna established what's called the Varna Ashrama system of organization for society for gradual elevation of all living entities to the position of liberation from the cycle of birth and death. So that the Varnas are the social positions, and the ashramas are the spiritual positions. So you have Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, and you have Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. So Lord Chaitanya didn't accept this. He said, that's okay, he said, but that's something external. Why? Because the Varnashram, and Krishna says that too, and we've read that in the 2nd chapter, 45th verse of Bhagavad Gita, where he says that Trigunya Vishaya Veda Nistrigunya Bhavarjana Nirdvandva Nirbandha Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Shema Atmavan. He says, the Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the 3 modes of material nature, O Arjuna. Become transcendental to these 3 modes. Be free from dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety. Okay, so then he says, Lord Chaitanya said, this is external. Say something else. So then Ramananda Rai says, okay, well, then next is Yat karosi yadasnasi yad johosi dadasi yat tapasya sikontiya tat kurusvamararpanam. He says, my dear son of Kunti, Arjuna, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give in charity, and whatever austerities you perform, all the results of such activities should be offered to me, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, both of those are shastric. I mean, this is a quote of a verse in the Bhagavad Gita also, in the 9th chapter. So again, Lord Chaitanya is going to say, okay, that's also external. Why? Because his reason is that in this age, Kali Yuga, people don't follow the Varnashram system correctly. You have the false caste system of Hinduism based on birth, whereas the original social orders are not based on birth. They're based on quality and work. But the Brahmanas changed one word. When it says quality and work, it's guna and karma. And they changed the word guna to janma and karma. So they created the false caste system. So therefore, people are not following it properly. Therefore, they're not making tangible spiritual advancement. And also, when the second point of offering everything, or offer the result of all your work to Krishna, people speculate about that. And Prabhupada writes, some materialists consider Lord Vishnu a material conception. Impersonalists think that above Lord Vishnu is the impersonal Brahman. The impersonalists misunderstand the worship of Lord Vishnu. They worship Lord Vishnu to merge into his body in order that Vishnu Aradhana not be misunderstood. In order that Vishnu service or worship not be misunderstood, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested that Sri Ramananda Rai proceed further and clear up the issue. Okay, so now the third statement by Ramananda Rai is that, therefore, give up one's occupational duties in the Varnashram system. And that is the essence of perfection. So, again, Lord Chaitanya doesn't agree with that. And why? He says that a Brahmana may renounce his family and accept sannyas. Others, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, may also give up their families and take the Krishna consciousness. Such renunciation is called karma tyaga. By such renunciation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied. In contrast, the process of renouncing the results of one's activities by offering these results to Krishna is not considered uncontaminated. In other words, it is considered contaminated. When you have a double negative, they cancel out and becomes the opposite. And so why is that? Well, because although such a process implies that one recognizes Krishna as the Supreme Person, it still involves one in activities on the material platform. Since such activities are within the material universe, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered them external. To correct this, Ramananda Rai recommended that one take to the renounced order of life in order to transcend material activities. So the third possibility now is renouncing, becoming sannyasi. And Ramananda Rai says that, and Lord Chaitanya rejects that also. So he says, and why does he reject that? Because when one actually takes to the loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he gives up all duties in the material world, as well as all duties prescribed by the Vedic literatures. In this way, one is fixed in the service of Krishna. So, if you become a sannyasi, it's still part of the Varnashram system, and it's another level of reformation or becoming reformed. It's not understood that you have attained pure love of Krishna. See, Lord Chaitanya's process is hear regularly the Vedic knowledge through Bhagavad Gita, as we're doing every day. You should hear every day. And engage in Sankirtan, in preaching and chanting the holy names of the Lord. So, those are pure activities. But that one remains in the material world and performing material functions and offers the result to Krishna, that's good, but it's not enough, because one may become attached to that, making money and offering some of it to the Lord. So Lord Chaitanya is aiming at pure devotional service. So he doesn't accept that. So now the fourth statement that Ramananda Rai makes is that devotional service mixed with empiric knowledge is the essence of perfection. Well, Lord Chaitanya doesn't accept that either. He says, devotional service mixed with non-Vedic speculative knowledge is certainly not pure devotional service. Therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his Anubhashya preaches that self-realization following the execution of ritualistic ceremonies is in the neutral stage between liberation and conditioned life. It is a place beyond this material world, in the river Viraja, where the three modes of material nature are subdued or neutralized in the unmanifest stage. However, the spiritual world is a manifestation of spiritual energy and is known as Vaikuntha, the place where there's no anxiety. So in other words, simply attaining that neutral state is not pure devotional service. And, okay, so then Ramananda Roy recommends, based on a verse in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochiti na kangsati samaksarve subhute sun mad bhaktim labbate param. Ramananda Rai said, according to the Bhagavad Gita, one who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. And then Lord Chaitanya says, well, in this verse from Bhagavad Gita, it is said that a person who accepts the theory of monism, that is, oneness with God, being always engaged in empiric philosophical discussions about spiritual life, becomes joyful and is relieved from all material lamentation and hankering. At that stage, one is equipoised. He sees all living entities as spiritual beings. After attaining this elevated stage, one can attain pure devotional service. The conclusion is that devotional service mixed with ritualistic fruitive activity is inferior to spiritual service based on empiric philosophical discussion. After hearing this, the Lord, as usual, rejected it, considering it to be external devotional service. He again asked Ramananda Rai to speak further. Now Ramananda Rai says, pure devotional service without any touch of speculative knowledge is the essence of perfection. And this Lord Chaitanya accepts, but he says, this is the beginning, now go further. And he quotes the verse spoken by Brahma in the 10th chapter, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 3rd verse, where he says, Gane prayasam utabhasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukaritam bhavadiya vartam, and so forth. And he says, Lord Brahma said, my dear Lord, those devotees who have thrown away the impersonal conception of the Absolute Truth and have therefore abandoned discussing empiric philosophical truths should hear from self-realized devotees about your holy name, form, pastimes, and qualities. They should completely follow the principles of devotional service and remain free from illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, and animal slaughter. Surrendering themselves fully with body, words, and mind, they can live in any ashram or social status. Indeed, you are conquered by such persons, although you are always unconquerable. So that's where we have come to now. Now, there's a lot more that we'll keep hearing day after day, but this is very similar to what we're hearing in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in this verse today, and especially when the word manisita is said in the verse. It says, manisita nubhavo yam. So this manisita means everyone is falsely or factually proud of his so-called learning. But the Lord says that the highest professional stage of learning is to know Him, or the Lord, and His abode devoid of all illusion. And to do that, one must go in the opposite way. Instead of becoming puffed up and proud, one should become humble and submissive to hearing, as Brahma says in this sixth alternative that Ramananda Rai proposes. This hearing on a daily basis, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, spoken by genuine devotees, and discussing this and thinking about it deeply, and having this be our guide to attaining perfection in human life. By following the example of Brahma, Brahma also heard the Vedic knowledge from Krishna, and he assimilated it and humbly executed it, and thus became Brahma, the secondary creator of the material world, and the original Prajapati, or person who produces living entities and giving them their different bodies according to their karma, and managing the whole universe. Right? He's the most perfect, most intelligent, and most surrendered person in the whole universe. As opposed to Darwin, who says everything started by an ignorant, one-celled amoeba, how did that come into existence? Nobody knows. So that's all, it's nonsense, it's complete speculation. So now we're getting the real story of how the material creation begins. And there's more information coming in the next canto. So I'll stop right there and see everything is progressive, right? So we came to this verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it completely corresponds to what we're reading in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about Brahma. Right. So are there any questions? Yes.
So, in the Bhagavatam sloka, you said, in the Mormon example, you talk about, in the translation, it says
Women
women, and in
and
the
merchants and sudras, workers.
in the purport, it says like everybody has equal opportunity
Yes.
for liberation, especially if they're devoted.
And there's no discrimination between higher and lower.
Yeah, in that case, why do we even like classify like men or women if everybody has
No, because everybody has different tendency for work based on their previous karma. Like, you probably have a good education, right? But I can show you many people in the United States that don't have good education, although they went to school. And they can't get these higher paying jobs. They can just get, $15 an hour jobs or $20 an hour jobs. And most Americans don't make more than, well, it's gone up a little bit now, but it used to be they didn't make more than $25,000 to $35,000 a year. That, for you, that would be crazy, right? How would you live on that? You can't live on that in Sammamish. But most of America is on that level, right? Now, does that mean they're excluded because they don't have good intelligence or they don't have a good job? No. Anybody can take the Krishna consciousness and attain perfection, whether they're educated or not educated. Right? If they simply follow the recommended rules and regulations that all of us have to follow, whether we have big education or we have no education. Right? I have to follow all the rules that everybody else has to follow. Right? So you come on an equal level through spiritual knowledge, not by material knowledge. Material knowledge creates all those differentiations. Spiritual knowledge equals it. Right? But because everyone will cooperate in the Varnashram system, and therefore everyone will make spiritual advancement, even the lowest classes, even people who are outside the class system, like the Chandalas, the dog eaters. And if you can see things more clearly in India than the United States. When I first went to India, we went to our temple in Calcutta, and across the street from the temple is a lake or some kind of a pond and a park, and there were people living in that. There were poor people living there, and they would catch things like a stray pig walking around. They would catch it, slaughter it, and eat it. I actually saw that, and they were living in pipes. They have these big water pipes, right? That was their house, and they had a little cooker, coal cooker, and the kids were playing all day long in the park. It's right across the street from the temple in the center of Calcutta. And there's a lot of people living like that, but still they raise their families, and they're eating all kinds of, disgusting things, but they're existing. You don't see that so much here. Of course, now you do, because you go downtown, you'll see all the homeless people. Before you didn't see so many, now you see a lot. So you see there's different grades of people, but if they all cooperate according and follow the rules and regulations of spiritual life, they're all equalized. And they all make spiritual advancement because they have one goal, and that is to please Krishna through the instructions of bona fide gurus. Right? But the way society is organized today, everybody has their own goals, and there's a huge variety of goals. Like one person wants to make America communist, another person wants to make it capitalist, another person wants to make it Christian, another person wants to make it Islam. And so there's chaos in society, and there's severe competition. Whereas the Varnashram system is based on cooperation, because everybody, whether you're a Brahmana or you're a Sudra or less than Sudra, you have to be humble and cooperate. And then you develop what's called sadachar, good qualities, by regularly hearing this knowledge and regularly following the instructions of bona fide gurus. Now you can see the whole system can be skewed by unbona fide gurus and false Brahmins who think they're superior to everyone else in the society. And that's what's happened in India, and that's why people reject it now. Does that answer your question?
So then the translation is more based on material classification, like when you say women or Chandalas or Sudras. But in the purport you explain that that doesn't exist in spiritual sense.
Those classes exist naturally. In Russia, and when it was a communist state, they tried to eliminate the classes, but yet they couldn't. You had the nomenclatura. The higher class were the intellectuals, and then you had the Kshatriyas. You had the leaders of the Communist Party and members of the Communist Party, and then you had the farmers that are living in the kolkhoz, the socialized farms. They eliminated personal property, and everyone lived in these big industrialized farms. And by the way, the production went down when they did that. Eventually, they couldn't feed their own people. They had to import wheat from the United States, right? And then they had the common workers. They were working in the factories. So they tried to eliminate the classes. They couldn't. And by the way, they never came to pure communism. Pure communism is Krishna consciousness. It's called spiritual communism. Their communism didn't succeed. It collapsed. So these classes exist naturally. You can't eliminate them, but you can equalize them through Krishna consciousness. Like, for example, I'm born a Sudra, in a Sudra family. In fact, I would be considered a Malecha or Yavana. I was born in a meat-eating family, right? But yet, by going through the process and accepting Prabhupada and accepting to be humble and meek and follow the rules and regulations, I'm able to teach this now. Right? That means anybody can do it. Anybody from any position can attain the same perfection. And the Brahma is an example also. Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll have Aarti. Okay, who wants to sing? This is sing. One of the boys wants to sing? Huh? You have to take your mask off. See, the main thing is, when a person has a pre-existing prejudice, you can make the best arguments in the world. They won't accept it. They have pre-existing prejudice. Yeah? To break that down, you have to let Maya break it down. When they get too much suffering in the material world, they suddenly understand that they must be doing something wrong. Just look what's happening now. All that huge tornado ripped up 275 miles of American Midwest, killed so many people. That's the proof that the United States culture is wrong. Something's going wrong, and nature is not cooperating. Go ahead.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bando Mui Savadana Mate
Bando Mui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhava Toriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te
Krishna Prapti Hoya
Mukha Sadma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya Arana Koriyo Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati Je prasade pure sarva asha
Prasade Pure
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते विवेकाय जहार चरितो विवेकाय जहार चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम चनर बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम चरण बंधु लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना Bejas Gushukri Bhuvana Bejas Gushukri Bhuvana Prabhupada Loilo Sharana Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Chila Prabhupada Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Bol Hari Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajigachasta Tarasatara Shri Shimad Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantamukti Kuti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Vasudi Gaur Bhaktivinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kundaras